Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. For decades, one massive stretch of ocean has really captured our collective imagination. It's fueled rumors, generated fear, and honestly, left behind a trail of completely unanswered questions. Well, today, we're taking a structured journey to finally uncover the truth behind the Bermuda Triangle. We're going to move past all the folklore and dive into some modern scientific discoveries to figure out the reality of this decades-old enigma.
To really understand the gravity of what we're talking about, I want you to picture this scenario. It's December 20th, 2020. A 130-foot boat carrying 20 passengers leaves the Bahamas, heading straight for Florida. It's a totally routine trip, and the boat departs in completely fine condition. But somewhere along that route, it just vanishes. The Coast Guard launches a massive search operation, 4 days and 4 nights, and yet not a single piece of debris is ever found. The ocean literally just swallowed it whole. So what forces could possibly cause a vessel to disappear without a trace?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the Bermuda Triangle Enigma, also known as the Devil's Triangle. Now, when we talk about searching for lost ships within those notorious boundaries connecting Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, we really have to grasp the sheer scale of the environment. Look at this comparison. The Bermuda Triangle covers an astonishing 800,000 square kilometers. To put that into perspective, that is larger than the entire landmasses of Pakistan and Turkey combined. When a vessel goes dark in a zone this staggeringly vast, search and rescue operations aren't just difficult, they are quite literally trying to find a needle in an oceanic haystack. Which brings us to Section 2, a history of vanishings. Let's look at this terrifying pattern. Let's walk swiftly through this timeline because we see a truly terrifying pattern of incidents spanning well over 70 years. And this isn't just some phenomenon isolated to old, unreliable technology. These incidents range from the aftermath of World War II right up to our highly connected modern era. So let's look a little closer at the foundational events that really built the Triangle's terrifying reputation. The modern mythos truly began back in 1945 with the infamous Flight 19. 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers, carrying 14 men on what was supposed to be a routine mission, suddenly vanished from radar. All of them, simultaneously. Because World War II had just ended, the Navy initially suspected enemy action, right? So they dispatched a rescue aircraft to find them. But incredibly, that rescue plane also vanished without a trace the very moment it entered the Triangle. It was this specific incident, the vanishing of the rescue crew themselves, that ignited worldwide fear and birthed all those wild paranormal myths about sea monsters and alien abductions. Fast forward to Christmas Day, 1967. An American businessman named Dan Barak took his luxury yacht out near Miami Beach. Shortly into the trip, he frantically radioed the Coast Guard, reporting that his yacht had struck a, quote, solid object. By the time the guards arrived at his exact location, there was nothing. No yacht, no debris, no Dan Barak. To this day, absolutely no one knows what solid object he hit in the middle of the open ocean. Just a completely abrupt, incredibly spooky disappearance.
Section 3. Harrowing Tales of Survival. Let's talk about some narrow escapes.
You see, not everyone disappears forever. Take the incredibly tense story of 2 19-year-old Navy officers, twins named George and David. They were on a private flight heading to their hometown. Just 30 minutes into their flight over the Triangle, the pilot announced a total, inexplicable failure of all instruments. I mean, no fuel gauge, no radio, no directional awareness at all. Below them was nothing but endless water. The pilot actually fainted from extreme panic. It was only because the co-pilot somehow managed to take over and miraculously execute a blind emergency landing hours later that they survived to report this terrifying loss of navigation. And this brilliantly illustrates that the threat persists even today. On May 23, 2017, Turkish Airlines flight TK-183 was flying over the Triangle en route to Havana. The pilot suddenly contacted the control tower with intense urgency, stating, "The aircraft is behaving completely abnormally." Relying purely on his instincts over the failing systems, the pilot executed an immediate emergency reroute. That split-second decision ultimately landed them safely and saved the lives of 440 passengers. Sadly, though, not every modern vessel makes it out. The 2015 tragedy of the El Farah cargo ship is a harsh reminder that the danger here is very, very real. This massive ship vanished from radar after a final communication suggesting it was rapidly taking on water. It took a massive combined military search operation an entire month to finally locate the wreckage, resting 15,000 feet deep at the bottom of the ocean. The triangle doesn't just swallow small yachts. It takes down massive commercial cargo ships, too.
Section 4. The hexagonal cloud discovery. A major scientific breakthrough.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sharp narrative pivot that happened recently. A team of scientists from the University of Colorado turned to advanced satellite technology to intensely study the skies directly over the Bermuda Triangle. And what they uncovered were atmospheric anomalies that experts had quite literally never documented before.
They discovered what they classify as hexagonal clouds. Unlike normal clouds that form in sort of random, soft, puffy shapes, these are bizarre, rigid, six-sided geometric formations. And they are massive. We're talking measuring up to 88 kilometers wide. The researchers noted that finding clouds with straight edges and such rigid structured geometry is highly unnatural for regular weather patterns, and they uniquely cluster right over the Bermuda Triangle.
Section 5. Nature's lethal air bombs. Let's look at the brutal physics of this.
So, what do these geometric clouds actually do? Well, the researchers realized they aren't just hovering peacefully. They act as literal air bombs. When these specific clouds form, they generate violent, explosive blasts of air that shoot straight downward towards the ocean's surface. This creates a deadly atmospheric trap for absolutely anything caught underneath, violently slamming into the water and churning up massive, destructive rogue waves.
270. That is the terrifying metric you really need to understand here. These downward wind blasts from the hexagonal air bombs can reach staggering speeds of up to 270 kilometers per hour. A downward force of that magnitude easily overpowers even the most sophisticated modern aircraft navigation. It physically pushes planes right out of the sky, and it creates waves so incredibly violent they can instantly swallow heavy cargo ships.
So the crucial point is how perfectly this incredible scientific discovery aligns with over 70 years of historical reports. Think back to the pilots describing sudden, abnormal behavior and a total loss of stability. Think of the El Faro rapidly taking on water. These 270 km/h downward blasts and the resulting ship-swallowing rogue waves provide the ultimate rational explanation for why vessels lose their instruments, lose their stability, and just abruptly vanish into the depths.
We started this explainer looking at myths of sea monsters and supernatural vortices, but as we've seen through the data, the rigid hexagonal clouds and their violent downdrafts paint a very different picture. It leaves us with this provocative thought. Are the true monsters of the Bermuda Triangle not aliens or paranormal forces, but simply the lethal, highly concentrated, and extreme forces of nature itself? Science finally gives us an answer, but, the reality of nature's power is perhaps just as terrifying as any myth. Thank you so much for joining me today to unpack the science of the Bermuda Triangle.